Hi, I'm Kinkas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's video, which is another installment of the series of videos I'm making on the Synths Moritz Klein .edu system. And today we're having a look at the sample and hold and noise module, which is one of my favorite kinds of modules to have. I have quite a few versions of this kind of a thing, from the very first U-Synth modular I built back in the day to advanced digital options such as the Kermit, and this system does not lack in that regard. It has the sample and hold and noise module as well. It gives you 3 types of noise, so pink, white, and blue. Also, you have a clock input as well as the internal clock, which you set with the rate knob over here. There's the sample and hold output, the slewed sample and hold output, and there's a slew control here, which determines how much glide you want between the notes that are being generated or the voltages that are being generated. Also, you can use this as a slew generator. There's a slew input as well, so you can break that normalization and use this as a slew generator for other functions in the system. Let's have a look at how to build this thing, and then I'll come back and we'll have a listen to different things that can be done with it musically. All right, be right back. All right, so in the box, you get all of the electronic and hardware components you need to complete the build, as well as the PCB and the panel. I like to start with the resistors, since they're the lowest profile components, and first I measure them. I don't trust my eyes with those color codes, so I measure them with my multimeter, and then I start plugging them in to where they go. In this build, some of the resistors are mounted vertically, also known as TP style. We'll leave those for later. We want to just focus on the lower profile components for now. The diodes are also low profile, so they can go in as well. Just make sure they're oriented correctly, as these are polarized. Now I solder from above and then turn the board around to trim and touch up the work. Now let's install the IC sockets. Just turn the board around in such a way that they stay in place. Then you can solder just the corner pins first to keep them steady, and then all of the other pins. Make sure the little bite on the sockets match the drawing on the PCB. That'll help ensure the IC goes on correctly when it's time to put it in. Now let's install the power header, pretty much the same way as we did with the sockets. Again, make sure the notch on the header matches the PCB. Now we can go ahead and install those standing resistors, the TP style. Make sure the body of the resistor lines up with the circle, the white circle on the PCB. There we go. Now, just to keep them in place, you can solder on the exposed leg on all of these, and then you turn around and solder the remaining legs, trim and touch up. All right, just a few left. Same deal with these guys. These ones I actually just opened their legs and soldered both from below. Do that too. Now let's go on to the film capacitors. place them where they go. The white box capacitors as well, the red ones. The tall ones, there's a whole bunch of capacitors in this build. And solder them up. Trim those leads. Onto the electrolytic capacitors. And these are polarized. And also the transistors. Solder them up. Clip those leads. And now we can snap the ICs into their sockets. Make sure they are oriented correctly. And time for the panel components. So just plug in the jacks and the pots and the LED. Slip the panel over it. Tighten the nuts. Solder everything up. Finish tightening the nuts and install the knob, the big knob. And you're done. Okay, I'm back, and let's actually put this thing to use. So first I'm going to create a bit of a voice here. I'm going to take the saw wave output from the VCO. We're going to plug that into the VCF, to the filter. We're going to take the filter to one of the VCAs here, and then the output of the VCAs into the mixer's output over here, right? So we can use one of the envelopes as a clock, right? So we'll leave the attack fast. Basically no sustain, and that way we can set the clock speed by the decay release over here, right? And we can send that to a multiple right here, because we're going to do two things with this. One is we're going to move the sample and hold. And if you don't know what a sample and hold does, all it does is what the name says. So it'll, at each clock pulse that you send it, it will sample the incoming voltage and hold it steady as long as it takes to get another clock pulse, right? So if you have something very chaotic changing very quickly, such as a noise, for example, this helps you tame that randomness from the white noise. It helps you freeze a certain random voltage that you get from the noise for a longer amount of time than the noise itself, because the noise is doing it at audio rate. So that's why it sounds like noise. But we can extract a random voltage from the noise by doing this. So first, let's have a quick listen to the noises. So I'm going to open up the filter, no resonance, cut off all the way open, and let's listen to the pink noise. All right, let me turn off my delay for now. Turn that on a little later. Here's the white noise. It's got less bass, right? Less low frequencies. And here's the blue noise. And this sounds like it has even fewer low frequencies, right? So basically these are just different filtrations of the white noise, different tilts in the EQ, right? Okay, so let's go back to having the saw wave here. And now I'm going to turn down the offset of the VCA, and we're sending this clock over here to the sample and hold, right? To clock in here, rather. And to the CV input, we're going to send the white noise at first. We're going to change them around and see. And you have a CV level attenuator here too, which would be nice to set the width of our variation. Okay, and the other cable from my clock source is going to trigger the other envelope generator. So I'm going to send that to the gate input of that envelope generator over there. We're going to take the output to the VCA CV input, There we go. And now, once I connect the sample and hold output of my sample and hold noise module to the volt per octave input of the VCO, we should start hearing a random sequence. Okay, so what's happening is the envelope is not really an adequate clock for this, right? So what we can do is take the pulse of my other VCO here and use it as a clock. This is a good time to mention. It's one mod that you can do to the sample and hold that would probably be a good mod to make is a clock output, so that you can use the clock output to trigger the envelope instead of having to use an external clock to trigger both the envelope and the sample and hold. Right now, the VCO is too fast. Right? If you go to audio rate, then you get noise again. But you get the idea. It's kind of an R2D2 thing going on here. Right? So already this is pretty cool, but you know what? Let's do this with with no envelope. Right? So we'll remove the CV here and manually open our VCA. And we're just going to use the internal clock of the sample and hold. Right? And we can use the slewed output, maybe for the filter cutoff. Right now the slew, super slow. We'll just make like a slowish LFO with the envelope here. There we go. And here's the clock control. So this is what it's doing, right? It's reading whatever voltage it captures in a moment out of the noise, and then it keeps it steady until it gets another clock. So what you get is this succession of fixed values, which right now are being equated, which right now mean notes, right? Because we're using those voltage values to control the pitch of the VCO. So that's like the classic use of this, is to do these R2D2 kinds of things. Right? Use a combination of the sample and hold knob, the filter, and the VCO. Then you can actually improvise with the patch. Now let's listen to the slewed output. Slewed output is going to give us a glide, right? So as we turn the slew knob up, see that? We're getting a glide or slew or portamento, either one of those three words. Any one of those three words is appropriate. Now another use for this is instead of controlling the oscillator, you can control the filter with it, right? So I can just create a drone here with the VCO and have the filter have all the variation. Right, let's take out the slew, make it stepped. Alright, now we can turn on a little bit of delay. Very cool, right? And of course you can use this for anything that's voltage controllable. You can create a random voltage that way. Now let's hear what the blue noise sounds like as a source. Cool. A little bit less variation, right? More focused. Let's go back to a little slew here. A little less delay. Try again. How about with the pink noise? Very cool. Let's take the sample and hold output to the stepped one, the non-slewed one, and go back to controlling the frequency of the oscillator with it. There you go, super cool. Doesn't that sound nice? How I love a sample and hold. Now, of course, we're using noises, so we're generating random sequences, but you can really send any voltage source to the sample and hold. It doesn't have to be a noise. So why don't we try, instead of the noise, and as you can see, I just pulled out the cable and there's a normalization there already. I think it's the white noise. It's normalized to that CVN. Now if I turn the CVN knob all the way down, then we get a steady voltage again. But now we're going to use this cycling envelope instead of the noise. And let's see what that does. Well, the cycling envelope is pretty much describing kind of a ramp that rises, a ramp that falls, so like a triangle, right? And it's slow. So what it should do, the sample and hold should make it into a stepped ramp. So check that out. So see how it now goes up and down, but instead of doing it like if I put this real quick, and we pretty much hear that LFO, right? As we start turning the rate down on the sample and hold, it makes it more and more stepped. Right? First there's small steps, then the slower I go, the larger the steps are. Cool, right? If I turn down the CV level here, we start reducing the width of the variation. Super important and classic tool in your sound design toolkit. Very cool. Now I can also use the mixer, right? And combine a noise and the LFO, and then take the output into the CV input of the momentum. So now it goes up and down, and also randomizes. So cool. So yeah, there's a lot that you can do with the sample and hold. This is just scratching the surface, just a brief introduction to the concept, give you some ideas to start playing around with. I just love the Zen delay, so having a little bit of fun here. I hope you don't mind. Very cool. So here's just random again. Here's just up and down. Right, and I can control them. How much of each with my mixer here. So yeah, definitely one mod. I haven't really done any mods to this system, but I finally have one that I really want to make, and I think there's even the perfect spot for the added jack. We'll see if there's room in the PCB to add it here. Otherwise, I'll find some other place to do it. But I definitely need to have a clock out, because with a clock out, I can actually use the sample and hold as the master clock and still trigger envelopes for both filtering and VCA or whatever else I want to do with it. So that will be it for today. I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked the EDU sample and hold noise module. Super fun. Okay, I just sent the pink noise as the sound source to the VCF instead of the oscillator. Cool. So now the module is acting as both sound source and modulation source. Cool beans. Stay tuned for the next one. See you soon, and stay noisy.